Well, Imtiaz Gul, I'm very happy to say, is here. Imtiaz is a security analyst and executive director for the Islamabad-based Center for Research and Security Studies. Imtiaz, thank you so much for coming in. I've only ever seen you on the other side of the camera, so now you're in Istanbul. How wonderful. Tell me, what are the main issues facing Pakistan right now?
Well, I think you laid out in your introduction that Pakistan is currently grappling with the consequences of an elitist governance model, which has resulted in a number of anomalies in the system. And we are really facing the consequences of this system. This is what, and this has also led to a lot of inflation ever since Imran Khan has come into power. And he's trying to modernize the economy. He's trying to structurally reform the economy. And this is getting a pushback from the forces of status quo. So there's a lot of tussle going on right now.
So much attention on this one man. And as we've said, Pakistan has this history. Imran has come in as an outsider, not being a professional politician. At least he didn't begin his career like that. And many people think, you know, in one term, you can't change the systems of an entire country. But as he's chosen to stand for the position, has been accepted by the people, he has the task to do it. You talk about economy. He borrowed more money from exterior sources, in other words, outside Pakistan, $16 billion in 1 year, more than any other government has ever borrowed from outside before. And what's it done for the country?
Let me correct you. I think the latest figures basically suggest that he has borrowed $10 billion from external sources. And this was done largely to repay the debts, the loans that Pakistan had taken from, the previous governments had taken from external sources. You have to service your debt. And that is a huge cost that the Pakistani people are paying right now. There was no alternative to borrowing more from the IMF. And with strings attached, that has really made life for the common people miserable. The government is trying to, it has brought down the deficit, the balance of payment has turned positive for the first time in the last 5 years. So there are some structural changes being undertaken, but obviously the short-term pain that people have to endure.
Okay, so your expertise specifically is security, right? So what about the issue here that before the election, people said Imran is in bed with the army, and now that he's been elected, it was because of the army, and now that he's in power, he owes his dues to the army. How does that dynamic, first of all, is that correct? But if it is correct, how does the dynamic affect the fight against terror that the Pakistani army is involved in?
Well, you have raised two issues. The one issue is of both being in the same bed. Reality is that there was massive support within the army, the serving army, as well as the retired armed forces personnel, for somebody who had a charisma, who made name through his cricketing career. He was acceptable to everybody. And had the army support been so direct for him, so he wouldn't today have been hanging by a thread, wherein the two allies, two coalition partners, are every now and then blackmailing him into small compromises. So that's a very bitter comment on the state of affairs. Yes, to a certain extent, the army might have engineered the victory of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, but it was not they didn't go for the kill. Had they gone for the kill, so he would have enjoyed a 2/3 majority. As for the fight against terrorism, I think there's a great synergy of thought on what was Pakistan's enemy and how Pakistan needed to go about. And the army had been very clear, particularly since the 2014, and in 1 week, 2 days, there would be the anniversary of a watershed event, Army Public School, in which 143 children were killed. Yeah. So we are getting to the anniversary, and that's what changed the calculus and the view of the army as far as fight against terrorism and local terrorist groups was concerned. And Imran Khan had also been wanting the same. So I think there is, and we have to mention actually that there has been a drastic decline in the incidence of terrorism in the last 3 years, more than 80% decline in terrorism. So I think that trajectory is right, and the army is continuing its fight in the periphery of Pakistan, in Balochistan, as well as in the northwest. And I think we are on course.
Okay, that's exactly where we need to go next, of course. Where then is the resolution going to come, and how is it going to happen? We already have the Afghan Taliban in negotiations, resuming those talks with the United States in Doha. What's the state of Imran Khan's government's negotiations? Are they existing at all with the Pakistani Taliban?
No, we had no negotiations with the Pakistani Taliban. We just fought them.
So literally it's just been a straight head-to-head fight, and the terrorist attacks have diminished because the army has been killing terrorists.
There's no doubt about it. The Nawaz Sharif government did try to negotiate with the Taliban, but then within a few weeks it transpired that these people were not interested in talks, and that they were acting as proxies for somebody, and those proxies were eventually then taken on. So I think they were disrupted, defeated, and many of them went across the border, but that problem is largely over. Now, the Afghanistan Taliban is an altogether different issue. They are sons of soil. They have been fighting, whatever you call them, whether terrorists, insurgents, militia, but the fact is that the United States is also talking to them, and Pakistan as well as China, Russia, they're all supporting that process led by the United States, and one would hope that in the next few days, hopefully, there will be a tweet by President Trump, that
so the deal is done.
That deal is done, and then that might then eventually lead to intra-Afghan negotiations, which would probably culminate in the creation of an interim government comprising all factions from all over Afghanistan.
Imtiaz, as I said, what a pleasure to see you in the flesh in Istanbul. Imtiaz Gul, thank you.
Thank you.